Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Dr. Corey Wren. I'm a vegan sociologist, I'm a vegan feminist, and I'm a vegan witch. In this short video, I'm going to take you on a really magical adventure to the very far side of the county of Kent in southeast England, to the Lost Village of Dode. Why is it lost? And how did I find it? Stick around and I'll show you. The Lost Village of Dode is, well, in a nutshell, a big spoiler here, is actually it was victimized by the plague in the 1300s. And it was a very rural space to begin with. There was sort of a Norman church there that marked the village space, and people could come there for celebrations, events, worship, etc. But it was really just an agricultural sort of community. And so the village of Dode is a bit of a misnomer. It's not actually a village. Nonetheless, the population around that area, the people who were using this church that you're seeing, they were really, really hard hit by the plague. And sociologically, the plague, obviously it's a horrible, horrible thing that happened, but sociologically, the aftermath is quite interesting because that led to a serious disruption of a very rigid class system. And so for the first time, there were not enough workers to go around. And so those who were remaining, who lived through the plagues, there was multiple waves of that, they were in a better bargaining position. And so you start to see more class mobility and less rigid social strata in medieval England. So that's just a little bit of background on why the village of Dode is the village of Dode. It's not actually a village. It's just a very stereotypical, characteristic medieval space from this part of the world. And the church itself is also relevant because it is a marker of colonization. So, and I actually have written a book called Animals in Society, where I look at Ireland as Britain's first colony, but actually it's not technically correct, because before Ireland was a colony of Britain, Wales was a colony of England, and before Wales was a colony of England, the people of England themselves were oftentimes colonized by outside marauding groups. In this case, we're looking at the Normans. So one of the first things that the Normans did when they came into England in the 1100s was they start to put up big fortresses. So a lot of our castles in the country come from that time period, and also a lot of the churches. So when I'm recording this, I'm sitting outside of the Canterbury Cathedral, one of the world's most famous cathedrals. And it's actually had a history into Roman times, pagan times, then Roman times, and then into Anglo-Saxon times. And then comes the Normans, and they made a lot of changes to the Canterbury Cathedral and lots of other pre-existing sites. And that's what we're dealing with here in Dode. This church that you see here is actually a sort of stamp of power. And so it was originally, they believe that it was originally whitewashed so that from across the countryside you could see this marker of Norman power. Well, of course, this was a very long time ago. By the time the 1300s come around, it's a much different political situation. But basically after the plague hit, the place fell into ruin and remained relatively derelict for hundreds of years afterwards. The caretaker today picked it up, I think, in the 1990s, and it was a sort of, people did not think he was very sane. His partner certainly didn't, for taking on this big project, but he was very sad to see this amazing old church that had been such a bastion for the community for so many hundreds of years to be left to go into ruin and have to be knocked down, because in the 20th century, a lot of historic buildings in England were simply being knocked down because they weren't in use, and no one had the money to fix them up. So we've actually lost a large percentage of our historical buildings very, very recently. They stood the time, all these centuries, just to hit into the era of neoliberalization and hyper-capitalism, and it just gets knocked all down. It's really sad. So it's really cool to see this place. And the reason we were here is that we were here for Lughnasa, the caretaker of the place who's done up, remodeled it and saved it. He does lectures regularly on major Sabbats, and we came there for Lughnasa in the beautiful summertime in the countryside. And they've done it up really beautifully, as you can see, and it's dog friendly. And I think it's a really amazing, interesting little bit of hidden history in England, Southeast England, if you're interested in checking out Off the Beaten Path, the Lost Village of Dode. So there you have it in a nutshell. Definitely bring your friends, bring your dog, and bring a drink maybe, because the guy who was giving the lecture was sipping on whiskey the whole time. I do think they have big parties there sometimes as well. They used to do, I think they did the summer solstice or Beltane event where they watch the sunrise and have dancing and music. Don't know if they do that anymore. Outside on the grounds, you may be wondering, there's a wishing tree, which is sort of a requirement for these mystical pagan, neo-pagan places. There's also, he's built a new a cairn where people can actually be buried on the site. So it's actually a functioning funeral, not crematorium. Well, I guess the cremated remains are in there as well. But it's a functioning sort of cemetery. And he built a false Stonehenge as well. So they do weddings and other celebrations. The Stonehenge is not real. But he likes to joke about this, the caretaker does, that, well, what makes it real? What makes it not real? We're building it for a similar purpose, to bring people together in community. So my dog enjoyed having a wander around, and it was a really lovely summer evening in Lughnasa in Southeast England. And that is the brief, mysterious history of the Lost Village of Dode. We don't really know quite a lot about it, but what makes it great is that it is a sort of snapshot into English history, and it is so representative of so many stories that took place across the early Middle Ages. If you like this video, I have lots of other videos where I take you around the mysterious lands of England and beyond, and I do it from a witchy perspective, and I always do it from a vegan perspective as well. So not much vegan about Dode, except that I was able to bring my dog, which is always a major plus and a major draw for me. But I do try to bring in a vegan perspective. And in this particular one, you know what? Maybe I'll leave you this tidbit. I think it's a bit of a misnomer. One of the reasons we have so much stereotyping against rats, and we have so much prejudice against them, and there's an effort to mass exterminate them, is because of this cultural trauma associated with the Black Plague. But actually, some research is now showing that perhaps it wasn't fleas traveling on rats, but actually human lice that was spreading the plague. So rats kind of are being treated as scapegoats, which I hate that word, because what about the goats? You know, the idea of the scapegoat is to take an innocent being and use them as a sacrifice and dump all your evils and sins on them and have them take the load for that. So when we're thinking about the Black Plague, I think it's important as vegan witches then to reclaim that and remember that this was a human trauma, a human spread disease, and just kind of like COVID today. Although we can look at animal agriculture as a major reason why COVID emerged and spread, this isn't animals' fault, is it? The non-human animals didn't do this. This is a human creation. So even in the Middle Ages, it was about human decision making and human markets and human economies and human culture that allowed the Black Plague to emerge and spread. So I'll leave you with that. So I hope you go check out the Lost Village of Dode. It's a really sweet place. Unfortunately, it is only accessible by car. I would not have made it if not for a friend who drove. But it is a nice day out in the summertime. Maybe not in the wintertime because it's not heated inside of there. What you see is what you get. So signing off, check out some of my other videos if you want to learn more about the magical history of England and beyond.